Well, welcome and thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to join us for this, the first of four similar sessions which will run throughout 2026. I'm Richard Bate, the Chair of Council, and I'll be co-hosting today with Carly Hughes, one of your council members. So CPD is polarising. I accept this, and there are those who are passionate about maintaining their CPD, some who are confused about what CPD requirement actually is, and others who disagree with the requirement. For me, I'm really clear. I've undertaken CPD in my current and previous careers, and I actually really enjoy the process. I enjoy learning. I want to expand my knowledge. I want to stay current. I want to feel engaged. And importantly, for a man of my age, I want to keep my neurons firing. I'm currently undertaking a short course on large language modules and GPT-4. I guess I don't want to be left behind and found wanting in a rapidly changing world of work. So to be clear, this is my perspective, and I don't need you all to agree with me. This just reflects my CPD process and my personal ethics. Now, I've seen some comments recently on LinkedIn about for the members, by the members sessions. I saw one question: who asked for these sessions? Well, it's really simple. You, our valued members, asked for these sessions, and this group of IOSH Council members, supported by our professional development team, Kirsty and Tracy, are here to share their insights and answer your CPD specific questions. So before I hand over to Carly, just some quick thank yous. Kelly Nicole, immediate past president, and our council members, or rather I should say your council members, Barbara, Mariah, Stuart, Yvette, David, and Ian, for volunteering your time to work together to deliver today's sessions. So a little bit of housekeeping. Please stay on mute unless you're speaking, and I possibly can hear somebody now who's not on mute. Questions, they're welcome anytime. Use the Zoom Q&A, and if you can't find it, select more. I think it's at the top. It's either at the top or the bottom of your screen. You'll find it there. We'll follow up on anything we don't get to, so please don't feel that you're being missed. The session is being recorded. And that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Carly to take you through the session, and I'll round up at the end.
Thank you, Rick. Lovely introduction there. So just to sort of clarify really why we're here today. So we know that CPD is a core requirement of IOSH membership, but many members tell us, whether it be on LinkedIn or through messaging, that they're unsure as to what good CPD actually looks like. They're worried that they might be doing it wrong. They might be overwhelmed by time pressures, for example. So this session isn't about policing CPD, it's about having confidence and clarity on the topic of CPD itself. As Rick mentioned a moment ago, this session came directly from conversations that we've been having as council members representing the membership. CPD shouldn't feel like a tick box exercise or something to be worried about. It's about opening it up, making it real, and being honest about challenges that we might face. So you'll hear different perspectives today. We've got lots of different council members on the call as well, and who'll be able to give their own experiences on and around the topic of CPD. Next slide, please. Amazing. I'm going to hand you over to Mariah.
Thanks, Carly. So just a little bit of what today is about then. So we want to be able to bust some common CPD myths for everybody on this call. It's your opportunity to ask us questions, but also we want you guys to get involved with our questions as well, which we'll be using live polls for. They'll be coming up on your screen. We'll be using the results and our discussions and our question answers from today's call to really shape future CPD sessions that we're providing to you, help improve guidance, communication and support as well with our members. And then as IOSH, really focus on what genuinely gets in the way of CPD.
So we'll hand over to Barbara for this slide.
Thank you, Carly. Over the next several minutes, we will go through several polls. I'm going to cover how the polls work. So the first tip is please answer them honestly. There's no right or wrong answer. All answers obviously are very, very important for us because we're going to use them to improve CPD support for members. Answers are anonymous, so that means that obviously we will be tracking them based on what you answered and how we can use your answer to help us to move it forward. But obviously you're staying anonymous. Poll results will be shared live, so that will support the discussion. You will be able to ask the questions at the end of the session, but if you have any important question to ask and you don't want to forget about it, please start your questions with Q so we can spot it quickly. Add your comments in the chat so we'll be able to monitor it and obviously lead the conversation around the discussion as well. Everything you share help us improve CPD support. So for all of the members, obviously we've got IOSH staff there on hand in the background if any issues arise. And be as honest as possible. We really want your answers to reflect what you really think about the CPD. So handing on to you, Carly.
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks, Mariah, as well. So all of you should see poll question number 1 on your screen, and the polls will be on your screens in a moment. So question 1, what are the biggest barriers preventing you from engaging in CPD more regularly? So you'll see there's multiple answers on the screen here. If we can ask you to select your answers. So you're not sure what activities count as CPD, difficulty using Blueprint, cost of formal courses, knowing how to reflect, unclear on what to plan for next, lack of time, personal commitments, employee support or other. And please put it in the chat if you do select other. This is brilliant. They're all, I can see them all changing. So at the moment, I think lack of time is proving to be the biggest barrier. Going to give it 10 more seconds and we'll see what happens. Okay, cool. So thanks, guys, for putting your answers in on that one. So we can clearly see that the winner on this one is lack of time, followed by not sure what activities count as CPD, which hopefully is the purpose of today's session, which we'll talk about shortly. And then we've got a couple of other popular answers there about difficulty using Blueprint and knowing how to reflect. So that's brilliant. Thank you, guys, for your answers on poll number 1. We will move on to question number 2. So question number 2, how confident do you feel about what IOSH expects from CPD requirements? So either very confident, somewhat confident, not very confident, and not confident at all. How confident do you feel about what IOSH expects from CPD requirements? Somewhat confident, not very confident, are in close contention with each other. We'll give it 10 more seconds. How confident do you feel about what IOSH expects from CPD requirements? Cool. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. So we can see that somewhat confident had the most answers, followed by not very confident, followed by very, very tight, very confident and not confident at all. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to question number 3. What motivates you most to engage in CPD? Answers are on your screen here. So we've got things like professional competence and confidence, networking, personal interest. If you don't feel motivated at all by CPD, keeping your skills up to date, maybe it's career progression. what motivates you the most to engage in CPD? So we've almost got like a neck and neck with professional competence and meeting the IOSH CPD requirements at the moment. We'll give it 10 more seconds. Make sure you put your answers in. Amazing. So what motivates you the most to engage in CPD? We can see there that the winner is actually meeting the IOSH CPD requirements of 30 hours a year, followed closely by professional competence and confidence, followed by keeping your skills up to date with industry changes. Amazing. Thank you everyone for your answers on that. Moving on to question 4. So we've got 5 altogether. We're on question 4 at the moment. What types of CPD activities do you find the most valuable? What types of CPD activities do you find the most valuable? So we've got online webinars, in-person events, articles and journals, maybe it's mentoring, work experience, podcasts, live walkthroughs, examples of CPD entries, for example, or other. And if you do select other, pop it in the chat so we can get an understanding as to what you find the most valuable. I think online webinars is proving to be very popular. Actually doing challenging work, yeah. So I can still see the numbers going up. We'll give it 10 more seconds. What types of CPD activities do you find the most valuable? Make sure you put in your answers in the polls, guys. Cool. So online webinars, look at that, 81%, followed by in-person or community events or workshops, followed closely by work experience, and then reading articles or journals. Nice. Brilliant, thank you. And our last poll question, so question number 5. What would make you more likely to update your CPD? The answers should appear on your screen now. So what would make you more likely to update your CPD? So is it automated reminders? Is it an easier logging in or application? More relevant content? Accountability, or an incentive or recognition? So what would make you more likely to update your CPD? Thank you. So really close one actually. So on top there at 55% was automated reminders, 53% was easier logging or application, followed by more relevant content, incentives for recognition and accountability. And I can see lots of you are putting your suggestions in the chat as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So thank you for that. That's the last of the poll questions, everyone. So we really appreciate your answers on those, and we can take these answers and the feedback that you've given and we can put these together in our future for the members by the members sessions focusing on CPD. So really thank you for that. We're just going to move on now to the myth busting slide and part of this session, where some of our fellow council members have kindly put together some recordings on the busting of those CPD myths. So I'm going to put myself on mute for a second, and I'll let the IOSH guys press play, and you can hear some of our fellow council members' feedback on CPD.
Hi, I'm Ian, and I'm one of your representatives on council. So, CPD. Let me try bust a myth. CPD means only attending formal and expensive courses. That's rubbish. So what's the reality? It's anything that you learn from and helps you develop. So what could that be? Well, reading an article, for example, or reviewing an HSE bulletin, going to a community event or an online event like you are attending now, reflecting deeply on a difficult or maybe challenging meeting or conversation with a colleague, even watching a video which may inspire you to go away and do something which you gain from. So as long as you learn, develop and push yourself to improve in the activity that you do, that in my universe is CPD.
Hello, my name is Yvette Moffat and I'm an IOSH Council member. I'm based here in Dublin in Ireland. My top 3 tips for CPD are: 1. Get to know Blueprint. Once you are familiar with the platform, it'll be quick for you to record your activities. 2. On the notes section on your phone, pop a few CPD questions in there, so when you attend an event, a seminar, or even read an article in a magazine in relation to health and safety, you can record that information quickly there and then. 3. Pick a time that suits you best to record your activities on Blueprint, whether it's the first Monday of every month or every week. Pick a time that suits. Do avoid Friday afternoons. Best of luck.
Hi, I'm Sean Lundy, IOSH President-elect. So today I'm at home, I'm sat at my desk doing some reflection on a few things I've learned in my day-to-day work. Like you, I've got CPD to do as part of my professional membership requirements, and crucially, I also need to record it to demonstrate that I'm actually doing it. CPD doesn't need to be onerous or complicated, and also CPD isn't just about formal courses or conferences, although those things are important and they absolutely have their place. So my CPD today is about reflecting on a few things: a team discussion I had around building safety and changes we need to make as a team to meet those emerging requirements. I also had a difficult conversation with a client about competence and some key things that I've learned as well from reviewing guidance on residential personal emergency evacuation plans. So what am I doing? Well, I'm thinking about what went well, what went wrong, what I've learned, what I do differently next time, and perhaps more importantly, how my thinking has shifted as a result. That act of reflection, capturing what you've learned and how it's influenced your practice, well, that's all CPD. So if you're already learning as part of your role, which I certainly hope you are, the key step is simply to pause, reflect, and record it. CPD isn't and shouldn't be about creating a lot of extra work. It's about recognizing the learning you're already doing every day and getting the benefits from that.
Amazing. Thank you to our fellow council members who put those videos together for us and explained some of the myth busting when it comes to CPD. I'm going to hand it over now to some of my fellow council members who are on the call to see if they've got any tips that they're willing to share on this session today. I'm going to hand over to Mariah first, if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. I think personally for me, I really enjoy CPD in the form of podcasts, especially when I'm traveling between sites and I know that there is a topic that I need to look into or something that I need to research. I normally go through and find a podcast in that area and then listen to it whilst I'm traveling.
Amazing. That's a really good way of using that time in between your visits, isn't it? To learn something or brush up on a topic that you might need in your day-to-day activities. Amazing. Love that. Barbara, do you have any that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. So on a weekly basis, I put aside half an hour in my working calendar, and I reflectively think about what I've done in a week. So at work, if I've delivered any training sessions and had actually several interesting conversations during the week, if I read some articles, and I try to use this half an hour to actually log everything in a blueprint. If it obviously matches whatever I've done and whatever I want to do and flag in the blueprint. But think about your week and try to put aside a little bit of time. It can be 15 minutes, but it may actually help you to structure your CPDs in more structured way. I've seen quite a lot of comments about lack of time. That really helped me to stay on top with CPDs. So I hope it's going to be the good tip for you as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Barbara. You do something similar to me. So you do yours on a weekly basis with half an hour. That's my last Friday of the month. I like to look back at the previous month. Although to be fair, I probably could break it down into weekly. That might be a little bit more achievable. But it's always good to look back on the activities that you've done. And like you said there, reflect on, is there anything that I could have done differently, could have done better? What did I learn from that particular maybe podcast, meeting? Sean mentioned it really well in his video there, where was there anything that he could have done to improve? What did he learn from them? So we've seen on the polls, haven't we, that time is one of those barriers for members to complete their CPD, and especially those reflective statements as well. So if a weekly basis works for you and you can schedule that in your work and diary, then fantastic. I personally do it on a monthly basis because I know that the last Friday of every month I try to work from home in the peace and quiet, and I'm not out on site. So that could potentially be some useful tips for those on the call today, is to actually schedule the time to carry out logging that CPD on Blueprint for sure. Amazing. I think we'll move on to the next slide now, which I believe is all about the questions and discussion. So we mentioned at the start of this session to put your Q&A or questions in the Q&A box. I think there's a little bit of both. There's some questions in the Q&A box, and then there's some questions in the chat as well. So I'm just going to have a little look here through here. See. I'm going to have a little look at governance as well to see if there's any questions that specifically stand out. One of the ones that I've seen popping up actually that I'm just going to quickly touch on is, will this session count as IOSH CPD? Yes, it does. Everyone log this on your Blueprint. You've taken the time out today to attend this session here. And this absolutely is going to count towards those hours that you need on your Blueprint. So yes, will this session count as CPD? What else have we got on here? Let me see. We did have a question on, let me just find it here. Expectations of recording CPD for chartered membership. So I'm going to hand this question over to Kirsty Dickens, who's on the call today. Can we talk a little bit about the expectations of recording CPD for chartership, Kirsty?
Of course I can. Thank you, Carlene. Great presentation and really good questions. I have been answering some of them, and the feedback is being duly noted. So thank you, everybody. So the chartered requirement for CPD is 30 hours and an ethical e-learning and assessment module to be completed on an annual basis. And that is what we'll be asking in terms of your assessment process, for the requirement that you are CPD compliant for your 30 hours and that you complete your ethics. So that is a part of the assessment process. I think it's really important that whilst you are working through your chartership and you have your assessment, you're already doing your CPD. You're providing information throughout your portfolio. You're completing the knowledge assessment and the professional discussion paper, which is all around reflection and how you're getting to your endpoint. So making sure you're not duplicating your work and adding it into your CPD is very important. Copy and paste, lift and shift it would be very helpful. So instead of feeling like you're having to do the assessment as well as doing your CPD, you are already doing it. So I hope that piece of information is helpful for anybody who is working towards their chartership or even their chartered fellowship. or even progressing to their next technical or certified grade. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful. Thank you, Carly.
Thanks, Kirsty. We've had another question come in. If you just give me a second, it's got a little bit of wording to it. So this, I'm going to aim it back at you, Kirsty. I'm so sorry. I am doing, this is a question, 200 hours of yoga teacher training. This is for my own personal growth, but there are also modules which are very transferable, e.g., anatomy is very relevant when we're thinking about ergonomics, meditation links to mental health. Would this be recordable for CPD?
I'd be very disappointed if it wasn't in there. Sounds absolutely fantastic and very engaging, and it clearly is helping your mental health and your well-being. So please do. I think the one of the largest myths that I've been witness to is that it's all got to be very health and safety driven. Actually, no, there is a lot of soft skills that could be added into your CPD, and there are some ad hoc activities that you can add those into, although it might not be aligned fully to the competency framework that is there as a guide for our members because it wasn't there previously. That has been built in. There was actually a question in there around previously CPD was seen as, ad hoc, do as you feel fit, but actually we've built in more of a structured CPD, not because we want to police you, it's so we can help and guide and support you in the direction of your areas of strengths and development. So that is very much tied to that. Sometimes it's not going to be a pigeonhole. You will go outside of that, and that's why we have ad hoc activities to allow you to do that. So the yoga is very important, so please do add that in, and it's available for you to do so. So thank you, great question.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question here from Mark Brown in the chat. How far back can you go to add evidence as CPD? He in particular is halfway through his chartered membership and has learning outcomes going back 7 or 8 months. Can I update with previous month's evidence?
Yes, of course you can. Please do so. It's really good to backdate. And if you find things that, that you did, as long as you've been a member for that time and the system recognises you, of course you can. I would highly recommend that you do that. That's a prime example of going, oh, I missed something. Let me add it back. And it's really honest of you, because some people just go, I'll just put it in for now. But no, please do. It's still learning. You've remembered it. So please add it in.
Absolutely. And that's one of those good skills, I suppose, to get into, which Barbara mentioned about setting aside that time regularly and putting it as a calendar invite. Maybe if you're working out of Outlook, that's what I have to do. I have to block it out on that last Friday of the month, because if I don't do that, I will probably forget to do it. So I suppose in a way it's just making it as easy as possible for you to reflect on the learning that you've done, which is fantastic. We've had another question come in. I suppose this is to any council members who teach or train, and I'm happy to answer this one as well. If you predominantly provide training services, what types of activities can be logged as CPD other than preparing new courses? What makes a task eligible for recording a CPD rather than just a task you carry out as part of your role? Do you want to spread a little bit of light on that one, Kirsty, and then I can add in what I think about training?
Absolutely. I think it came out quite a lot in the poll, to be honest, which so I kind of feel like it's a bit, some members completely understand, because they said that the benefit of their activities was actually training, which I thought was really handy. So, there are people in the room that do purely see the benefit in their CPD training side of their role. So it was really good to see. But yeah, so I deliver sessions, events, and I get this question quite a lot, is it's a mundane role. I do it every day, but actually, are your audiences the same? Absolutely not. This is my CPD. The questions are although I can preempt some of the answers and some of the questions we'll be getting, there will be some in here that I'm like, oh, okay, I've never seen that before. I didn't quite realise that. That's my CPD, my go away. So in a room where you're delivering training, you're not always going to get the same audience. You're going to get different learning styles. You're going to need to adapt your way. But actually, how did you go about doing that? So, and I know that, we have quite a lot of trainers in the room. So Carly, in terms of your personal experience, I know that you've had to adapt. So hearing from you would be really helpful.
Yeah, it's one of those things as a teacher or a tutor, you may be delivering the same content each time you train a course, or you might add things in or remove things, but the audience that you're delivering to is different every time. You might be delivering an IOSH course or an accredited manual handling course, whatever it might be, and you might deliver that course 12 times in a year, but you have 12 different cohorts of people. I know myself, especially in the past 18 months, I've had to undertake training myself off my own back for things like how to make my training courses more inclusive for those with neurodiversity, for example, or I've had to change some of my course presentations for those that have like a certain way of like colour blindness because they can't see the content on the screens. So having to adapt to that and having to go away and do some of my own learning as a teacher, as a tutor, is something that I've had to do, and that counts as CPD. Do we have any other teachers or tutors from council on this call that have got any advice for those that maybe deliver things, even if it's like toolbox talks or training sessions, for example, that want to share?
Hi, Cardi.
Hi, David.
So I'll jump in here. I completely agree with what you said. So every cohort you teach, each and every cohort you teach teaches you something different. For example, with one cohort, you may have a little bit of a difficult learner, and then you would have to deal with something like conflict resolution. If you're able to manage that conflict well and the lessons you learn from that conflict, you absolutely should log that as your CPD, for example. If you learned a cool way to make new slides and the slides now have features that are so cool, that's new skill, that upskilling is CPD. So I encourage everyone, don't limit yourself to things like toolbox talks and just health and safety stuff. Once you're learning, this is CPD. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, David. There's a comment that's just come through on the chat that aligns quite nicely with what David said there as well. Running your own business. There are so many other non-specific topics that relate to achieving success. I know that there's a couple of people whose faces I can see on the screens now who have their own businesses that probably do CPD all the time in relation to business things like accounting, social media, conflict resolution, what David just mentioned there. You might have to upskill yourself in the use of AI, the use of how to use X, or it previously used Twitter, how to use like a marketing platform, for example. You're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to learn something, and it's the reflection on that particular activity. That counts as CPD. I'm just having a look through here. What other questions have we had? Team at IOSH, if you can find any other questions. I'm trying to look through the chat and it's going really quickly.
We've got a question there, Carly, from Fraser, who's asking about when you're studying a longer course, can you use reflection on modules within the course as part of your CPD, or do you have to wait until the course is completed and do it all at once?
I'm happy to jump in there. Sorry, I got very excited, came off mute and then thought, no, actually, yes, 100%. Please, I encourage every point of your learning, it's fresh in your mind, get in there, put it in there. I think a lot of people have this, again, myth that you just put, I did a qualification. Yes, that's fantastic. But we know that a qualification isn't just one, it's a multitude of different activities that you've had to get to your end point, preparing for it, planning for it, doing the actual information, doing the theory, doing the exam, and each point. So making sure that you do that bite size, not only because it's different elements of your learning and you can go back to it, but it also gives you that stretch for your 30 hours, and you could more than likely exceed that, because we know that qualifications do take longer than 30 hours. So making sure that you're being quite mindful of that would be really helpful, and a really good myth that members think that it's just one activity. So yeah, it's a great question, and thank you for letting me answer it very excitedly.
Thanks, Kirsty, and thanks, Nat, as well. That was a question that we had sent in previously, where people are potentially carrying out like a project or a really long qualification, and it exceeds that 10-hour maximum point, if you like, but you can break it down into modules like Kirsty just mentioned there. So that's spot on. That's a really good question, and thanks for the answer, Kirsty. I can see that Jim in the chat, I run 2 martial art clubs and never think of adding that as CPD. You definitely are doing CPD because you're having to teach people, and you learn something every time, I bet, when you're carrying out your teaching and training in those classes. Dane Hill, can learning and understanding the new ISO 9001 standard be part of CPD? Yeah, Mariah's answered that one. It's on her CPD, it's on her agenda as well. So absolutely. We have had a question on here as well that asks, can we have some kind of document to show the attendance of seminars, like a certificate of attendance? It definitely helps members from Hong Kong to renew registration status with the local government official. Don't know who to ask that one to. Go on, Kirsty.
So it's definitely something that's on our radar. It's something that I won't be able to confirm right now if it's going to happen, but the collective feedback is people like that reward. And actually one of the questions here was incentive. You want an incentive, you want something for your CPD. So, badges or anything like that is something for us to consider as a business. So I have written that down, but it is definitely on our radar. So thank you for that question and thank you for that feedback.
Amazing. Thank you, Kirsty. We've had another question come in from Dennis, who has asked, as a retired person, I would appreciate some pointers on a recognised wider range of subjects, not specifically related to the workplace. Does anyone on the call want to give a go answering that question?
Oh, I can take that, Carly, if you're okay with that. Well, I was just reflecting on some of the great questions that we've had. And I try really hard not to stay around the sector in which I work. But recently, when I'm walking the dog, if I'm not talking to you, because you and I tend to catch up when we're both walking our dogs, I listened, I use Amazon, I use Kindle, but I listen to books as I'm walking. And when I've completed that book, I just do a quick reflection on what I've learned from that book. But I do get the question, and it's really relevant to someone who's retired. It could be, I'm going to give an example. I was in a fishing town in North Wales the week before last, and I started having a conversation with one of the ship's captains. I told him what I did for a living. I had a great conversation about the risk in offshore in the fisheries industry. That ended up with me having a guided tour of the boat. That's CPD. That's just a professional conversation. And I would have had that conversation regardless of whether I'm working in the event sector or any other sector. So I guess what I'm really saying in a very roundabout way is if you're curious and it's relevant, record it.
Yeah, that's a really good way of describing it, isn't it, Rick? And you didn't even think you'd have that conversation when you woke up that morning either. So you learned something new that day, which is fantastic. We've had another question come in from David. He visited the Health, Safety, Wellbeing event in Manchester last week. They recorded 2 separate days at 6 hours each to capture the theatre sessions, speaking with industry experts on services and equipment. They wrote a reflection each day that they attended. Is this the correct way to record this? Also, is attaching evidence mandatory? Over to you, Kirsty.
Well, I think that, David, you are really doing well with your CPD. And yes, that's absolutely right. And I think, you could even break it down even more. So if you did, if you went to different talks, you could write that one down as one activity for the length of time you were there. But also remember, it takes time for you to digest that information, go back, write your reflection, which should all be added into your total amount of hours. Don't just go, I attended a session for 30 minutes. Actually, I attended the session for 30 minutes. I went home, I reflected upon that. And actually that turned into 1 hour, an hour and a half. So just absolutely, what you've done is a perfect example of how we want your mindset to be with the CPD. The last bit, what was that, Carly, in terms, because I didn't want to ignore that last bit because I think it's brilliant.
They've asked, is attaching evidence mandatory?
No, it's not. The evidence is purely for you. It's a log. It's a place where you can attach information for you to go back and have a look. So yeah, use it as you see fit. It is not a mandatory attachment, no. Great question. And thank you very much for doing your CPD.
Thank you, Kirsty. We've had a really good observation come in from Lee Wood. Created a cycling club and put on a local, he created a cycling club and put on a local race. So much of IOSH, Occupational Safety and Health, crossed over and supported me linking with British cycling. I'm sure there were a plethora of risk assessments and planning that had to go into that, and absolutely that counts as CPD for sure. Let's have a little look. What else have we got on here? Does IOSH give feedback on CPD that has been recorded?
Yes, we do. We, especially there's individuals on this call that have actually contacted me and said, I'd like you to have a look at it for me, Kirsty, and get your team to do it. They know who they are. And, we'll quite often do that, and we do conduct reviews. So moving from certified to chartered, a review is conducted just to make sure that we can guide you and support you to your progression points. And there are touch points, especially members who will go, we're doing this, can you just check us for us? And sometimes you'll prick my ears and I'll go and have a look at you and put you forward for a magazine article because your CPD is outstanding. But then we also have the audits as well that are conducted with our members. So we are reviewing, we are checking, but I think our main thing is that we are guiding you, supporting you, and getting you to understand activities and myth bust. So we're very much very impressed with this session because it helps us get the message out there that CPD is everywhere. And I think that's been quite clear in these questions and our answers. Yes, that's CPD. Yes, that's CPD. So yeah, we're hoping for a positive outcome from this. And yeah, we do review, and we can do that should you want us to have a look at it for you as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Kirsty. We've got another question here from Paul. Will there be a review of the CPD system following this session? What we've heard so far is the system is the way it is. That is what is frustrating people. It should take members' points of view into account. I'm going to send that to Natalie, please.
Thanks, Carly. Not a problem. Great question. And we're here for council, aren't we? Council are the conscience of the organisation. They are here to gather this information from the members, and that's one of the primary goals today. Yes, we're always learning, we're always looking for that feedback, and actually I would encourage you to attend all these sessions so that once council are armed with all that data can be collated, it can be presented collectively from council, and they can represent members' views back to the Board of Trustees and look at what improvements are needed in relation to the system that's currently in place, or the actual, the requirement as to what that CPD looks like. So please keep attending these. This is what council really, really want to achieve by putting themselves out there. And actually, when you see the comments on social media, what's council doing to represent the views of the members? There's 300 people on the call here today, and council are running this session to represent and gather those thoughts and feedback into the institution. So I think it's been quite successful so far.
Thanks, Nat. I'm just going to ask 2 more questions and then we will move on to the next slide, if that's okay. So I can see that Caroline on here has mentioned I am a manager of quality, environment and health and safety for my company. The quality bit is new for me. So can I use this road of experience within my CPD? I'm shadowing an experienced quality manager and he is shadowing me for environmental health and safety. Yes, we mentioned at the start of the call during the polls that mentoring and shadowing and work experience, that absolutely forms part of CPD. So yes, Caroline, that is a big tick on that one. That is absolutely CPD. And we'll take one more question. Let's have a little look. What have we got on here? Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Caleb. They create HSE content for TikTok and often has to research information or familiarize themselves with other HSE sectors to provide relevant content. Does that count as CPD? Yes, absolutely. And we're saying moving with the times now and moving onto a platform that is, widely reached by everyone. And Mariah's asked the question, please share the TikTok. Caleb has put it on there. So thank you very much for that. I said that was 2 more questions. If it's okay with governance, we'll move on to the next slide. I'm just conscious of time. Perfect. So you can see on the screen here, guys, that there are 2 opportunities for CPD here. So we've got the Thursday, the 26th of March, 2026, from 10 till 4:30. We've got the IOSH Magazine Live, which is a new free to attend online CPD event session for the occupational safety and health profession. There is a link on the screen there if you guys wanted to register for that. But we also have a CPD workshop. So IOSH holds free online workshops for an hour to support members who want to push on with their CPD. And the next one takes place on the 25th of February. And the link is on the screen there as well. And I'm going to move on to the next slide now. And I'm going to hand over to Yvette to talk us through the next piece on recruitment.
Hello, everyone. Great conversation about CPD there this afternoon. I'm going to just briefly discuss IOSH Council. We are looking for new members on IOSH Council, and we would hope that some of you on this call will consider applying. The bullet points there give you a brief overview on what is involved in Council, but if you do step forward and consider joining us as council members, you will be representing members from across the world, and you'll be the voice for thousands of health and safety professionals out there. Your experience and your perspective and your insight will help ensure that IOSH does reflect on the real challenges and opportunities that face us members across many industries and across the world. But it's also not just about influencing change and looking at key policies and priorities. It's also about personal growth. I find that I have found over the last couple of years being on IOSH Council that I have built more skills to help with my own profession in health and safety, such as leadership skills, governance, strategic thinking, and collaboration. And you definitely grow in confidence when you're part of a group like this. And you can also strengthen your CPD as well. You can reflect on what you learn while on council. And you do gain exposure to decision making at the highest level within IOSH, which is really rewarding as well. And at the same time, you're always giving back. You're supporting the profession's growth. You're upholding some standards as well and ensuring that new health and safety professionals inherit strong forward thinking within the institution. I've also found that I've expanded my network. I'm connecting with lots of other occupational health and safety professionals from across the world within my own fellow council members and others who I've met along this journey. And it's been really beneficial for me. And we also have noticed, we know also that the world of OSH is changing. There's new technologies out there. We've just heard about the TikTok site, which is amazing. And there's lots of changes in regulations and new and emerging risks with AI and digital technology and things like that. So we need to stay ahead of the curve. And we need to stay informed and engaged, and being on IOSH Council can support that. So it's not just a role, it's an opportunity to lead. You'll be an opportunity to influence, an opportunity to grow, and an opportunity to give back. So if you do think that you could fit the role of an IOSH council member, do fill in the application form by the closing date, and hopefully you'll be a voice for all of us members. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvette. That was amazing. Really eloquently put. So thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to our last slide now. I'm going to hand back over to Rick to do his closing remarks. So I just want to say a personal thank you to my fellow council members, to governance, and to Kirsty and her team for the work they've put together on creating this session number 1 on for the members by the members. You can see on the screen here we've got future dates for the next 3 sessions, and just a personal thank you from me. I'll hand over to you, Rick.
Thanks, Carly, and thank you to everybody from council who contributed today. Also governance and Tracy and Kirsty for helping bring this together. As Carly said, this is the first of 4 which will run through. I think the last one's October, November. We will work through your questions. There were so many really good questions today, and also there was a few humorous questions in there, which is they've made me smile. Couple of reflections. 30 hours is actually 34 minutes a week. It's not a huge amount of time. Kirsty shared some great ideas about, how you can split up a course. I've done a 62-hour course recently, and I've split that up into bite-sized chunks, which I've reflected on. So great ideas. I also, Yvette, that was a really great slide you delivered on the value of volunteering and networking. And it really would be great if some of the more than 300,000 of you who are on this call today would consider applying to council. Then you can be that voice of the membership. So that's me done. The polls were great. There's some insightful information in there. I'm sure Kirsty's going to look at that. So look, if you enjoyed today, please join us for the next one. If you didn't enjoy it, we'll still listen to your feedback and we'll work through your questions. That's great. Thank you to everybody, and thank you for your time today.